we live?
What's going on?
Oh, well, that was very smooth. Hello and welcome to the Villa View transfer talk. Finally, we get some transfers and we get a start like that. Tom Julian joined by Dan Bardell as ever. Dan, what happened?
I don't know. Where's the intro? Where was the graphic? What's going on? I know what's happened. Oh, there we go.
There we go. Hello.
Very confused.
Welcome to Transfer Talk. Not sure about the technical specifics of this one, but finally we have something to talk about, Dan. And actually, it's going to be quite a busy show. We've got two signings. Jack Grealish makes his England debut. Still a few more rumours kicking around the old transfer rumour den. And finally, seems like Villa are starting to kind of get into transfer gear.
Yeah, I think it's obviously the beginning of. I'd expect at least three more to be coming through the door before we get to October and the transfer window closing. But it's good to get a couple done, especially as last show I did kind of say there'd be two done in the next week or so. So that's good. It's validated what I said last week. So that's always a good thing. But
hang on. If we're gonna keep you to record, I think you said two by the end of last week, not by the time the next show comes out. Just for transparency.
I was a few days out, obviously, but before the next show, a week ago, I said two people would be in and two people are in, so it's not like I'm a million miles away. And there'll definitely be more to follow as well. We pretty much knew last week when we were doing the show, didn't we, that May Cash was coming in, and I think over the last few days it's become apparent that whatever's been holding the Watkins deal up, Villa have got it over the line, and that he was coming in. It was nice to wake up this morning and a few hours later Watkins had arrived at Bodymore Heath, and you're seeing all the images and the videos of him coming and meeting Dean Smith, and he's a signing that I'm excited about. You're always excited, aren't you, when you sign a forward player, because you always start to think this is the guy that's going to score 20 goals, and don't want to put him under loads of pressure, but I'm really excited about him. I think he'll fit in well in the Premier League, and I think he'll fit in well at the club.
Yeah, regarding your prediction of two players, Nicole Johnson says you are close enough, so she's willing to give you the benefit of the doubt. I think we can let you off. Should we start with Ollie Watkins then, because that's the news of today? It's probably been the rumour that have been linked with Villa the most, I would say, from the start of the transfer window opening. Dan, we were always after this kind of striker, come winger, come kind of versatile forward player. And Ollie Watkins obviously scoring a lot of goals in the Championship, links with Dean Smith from Brentford. It always felt like it was going to happen sooner rather than later. A lot of talk been said about how much the fee was in the end. 28 million rising to 33 is what's reported. How much does the money matter to you and as a fan, and how much should fans be worried about that kind of stuff?
Well, it doesn't really matter to me, because it's at the end of the day, it's not my money, is it? So it's not a problem. I think if you look at it from the point of view that he's got in fact, he scored the same amount of goals last year in the Championship that Tammy scored for us in the Championship, and I don't think Watkins takes penalties. So if you look at that, if we'd have spent that money on Tammy this time last year, or even this year, I think we'd have all been dancing in the streets saying what a signing, that's money well spent. So 26 goals, that's like a very good achievement. The Championship's a tough league, as we found out over the 3 years we were in there. So he's proven that he can stick the ball in the back of the net. We obviously could have probably had him cheaper 12 months ago, but then he'd never proved himself to the extent that he's proved himself in the 12 months since, if that makes sense. He's playing as a central striker last season, which wasn't something that I think he'd done before. He'd previously been playing from a wide position. It's good to have that versatility, as well as you say, of someone that can do both. I've actually changed my mind in that I think he's been brought in as our main striker now. I thought he might be the one that was brought in as a wide player / forward. I actually think he'll be our main striker, and I think the next forward player that comes in will be the person that will play wide and then play up front when needed. But it's good to have as many people who can be multifunctional as possible. But he knows Dean Smith. You could see in that video that was on the club Twitter earlier, he was like, finally. So it's obviously been dragging on for a while. I'd imagine it's probably been the fee that's been holding it up, because it is a lot of money. 28 million must be one of the highest players to be signed from a Championship club, especially someone who hasn't played Premier League before. I can't recall anyone going for that kind of money that hadn't got Premier League experience. before. So it is a lot of money, and he will be under pressure because we are a demanding fan base. We always have been. We've got high standards, and obviously we hold players to high standards as well. And we like a good goal scorer. It would be nice to have one because we didn't really have a proper goal scorer last season. And if he can even get between 10 and 15, that'll make a massive difference to where we finish.
Yeah. Charlie Parkman in the comments, been robbed with the fee, but with all things considered, goals and versatility, it's a no-brainer. Dean Smith will know how to get the best out of him. Craig Taylor Broad, nice to see us want a player and go out and sign him for once rather than let another club swoop in. And Philly D, happy for Exeter as well, and the money that they received from the deal, so great for that club as well. You sometimes forget the kind of knock-on effects that these deals can do. Only in Championship Manager, Football Manager, do you add a 20% clause on or whatever when the player's sold on. But that kind of money is huge for smaller clubs and clubs that are kind of fighting for their lives sometimes, especially in this kind of current COVID situation. It's going to be really important for them as well. A couple of people in the comments down asking what number Watkins is going to go for. 11, I think, was bandied about. I mean, with your encyclopedic knowledge of numbers, you've got to immediately think about which number's going on the back of the shirt and which number's going on the back of the fan shirts this year.
But it made sense for 11, wasn't it? I don't really like Nakamba as 11, to be honest. It's not really a defensive midfielder's number, and I think we've got 4 running spare as well, so it would have made more sense for him to be number 4. I think we were perhaps saving that for Twanzebe last summer, and then it never materialised, obviously. I think talking about the Exeter stuff, it's obviously a great thing that it's going to help a lower league team that, as you say, might be struggling a little bit in the current circumstances. But people going on about the fee as well, like the longer the time went on without him signing, the weaker Villa's position comes and the stronger Brentford's position comes, if that makes sense. So they can demand the fee because Villa needed someone in before the start of the season. I mean, luckily we've got that extra week on everyone else, so we might even be able to get a couple of more in before that. But we couldn't really be going into the season without having a striker. Even for game 1, we needed a goal scorer. We needed someone to lead the line for us, and he fits the bill because he's quick, he's strong, he scores all kinds of goals, right foot, left foot headers. He's direct, he can carry the ball, he'll score tap-ins. I've seen him score goals from outside the box as well. So I think he's obviously got things that he can work on. He's only young. I think he's 24. That there'll be things that he can hone, and Dean Smith will be looking to do that with him and work with him again. But Dean Smith's made him a better player in the first place. At Brentford, he's then gone up another level last season under Frank, and he'll require different skill sets in the Premier League. But I'm confident that he's got what's needed, and as I say, I really think he'll fit in.
With the rumours as well that Josh King still might be a possibility, Dan, is he someone that you'd like to add to the mix still? Are we still in the market for a striker? Obviously, Newcastle doing their business as well. Is Josh King the next man to come in at Villa Park?
I don't know where we're at with it, to be honest. I think there is interest there. I'm not 100% sure whether we've lodged a bid or not, but I think there is definite interest our side. I think at this point in the window, Villa have tried lots and lots of things that haven't come off. That's my understanding. That's what I think. I think that they've had big targets, but whilst we've got a massive transfer war chest, I don't think we've got the wage budget in terms of, if we'd got Callum Wilson in, for example, and paid him 110k, which is what I think he's on going in at Newcastle.
Wow.
Villa have got players there now that would turn around and say, well, I want that. I want 110k. So it would have completely broken the wage structure. I think Jack's the highest paid player there at the moment. Obviously, he should be the highest paid player at the club. He's the best player. He's the captain, but it's a bit strange because you've got that massive transfer budget, but I don't think we can compete on a wage front at the moment. And I think that's what's finding us out at the moment. I think that's why we've perhaps been a bit slower than people would like. Josh King's a good player. I said about a month ago on Twitter, he's someone that I'd definitely like us to have a look at because he ticks the boxes of being playing in 2 positions. He's got the Premier League experience. He's got a decent record from someone who doesn't play as a central striker all the time. He's got that pace like Watkins, which is something we desperately missed at Villa last season. There was literally no pace in the side. We were so one-paced and at times so pedestrian. So having that injection of speed will really, really help us in the new season. Josh King, he ticks boxes for what I would like for a player, but I don't think he ticks the boxes perhaps that the board want in terms of longevity, and that in a few years' time he's obviously going to be in his 30s and you're not going to be able to make any money on him. But we're desperate for some Premier League experience in our setup, and he ticks that box.
I'm still reeling from the fact that Callum Wilson is going in on 110k a week. I know you've been watching it too, the All or Nothing Spurs documentary. I'm up to the episode where Danny Rose basically marches into Mourinho's office and says, "Play me or I'm leaving." But I think that's a really interesting episode. If you guys haven't watched it, the Spurs All or Nothing documentary about how a transfer window works, and you get a little glimpse of the kind of battles, I guess, that the head of recruitment has to do, that Daniel Levy has to do, and then the players. Danny Rose saying allegedly that Newcastle is an all right fit, but he doesn't want to go to Bournemouth. Villa are in a similar situation now, where we survived in the Premier League, but we're not a potentially glamorous opportunity for a lot of players as well. There's the moment, I presume you're up to date.
Yeah, I've watched it all.
Where he's asking about the Milan interest as well, and it's like there's a player element in that as well. So there's so many factors that go into these transfers, but just hearing that Callum Wilson is up in that kind of range really sets the bar for the players that we can attract in our current wage structure.
It's really hard because whatever we say, money is a big driver. Players want to earn as much money as they can because it's a short career, and they want to stabilise their future because they don't know what they're going to do after football. We'd all be the same, so I don't think anyone can argue with that mentality. But I think we're struggling because I think we have got ambition. I think the owners are very, very ambitious. You can't deny that. And in some ways, you've got to take baby steps. But I think we're probably showing unrealistic ambition at times. Daniel Levy said it, didn't he, in the documentary, that if you want to buy players that are better than the players that you have, it's really, really hard to do so. And Villa will be aiming high, but the facts are that Southampton were a club 10 years ago that you'd have said Villa are way bigger than Southampton in a much better setup. I mean, Southampton were probably in League One 10 years ago, to be fair, but they've had that sustained period in the Premier League. Now, the 3 years where we weren't in the Premier League, it was the worst time to get relegated. When we got relegated, the money, the TV money, it all just went crazy. And we missed out on that. Yes, we got some parachute payments, but it was nowhere near the kind of money that the likes of even Southampton would have been pulling in. So their wage structure will be far superior to us. So if it comes down to joining Southampton or coming down to joining Villa for a player, they're probably going to choose Southampton because they can get more money from them because they pay a better wage. So we're in a difficult position at the moment, I think, where we want to get better and we want to aim high, but it's going to be really difficult to pull in those top level players. So we have to try and be clever. I think we tried to be clever last summer. Some of the signings worked, some of them didn't. This feels a bit more like we obviously don't need as much, which is a good thing, because I don't think there'll be as much panic, and I don't think we'll be pulling players in from here, there and everywhere. But we've obviously known about Watkins for a while. Cash was probably a relatively straightforward deal for us, although it's relatively big money. But in terms of wages, it's getting in the rest of the players that we're going to want now. That it's going to be harder because the class players are going to want class wages, and I don't think Villa pay that at the moment. Yeah,
Holly Jennings, we don't have the pull, and we're flying off, and we can't be offering random players 150k. It would destroy the dressing room.
Yeah,
it's a hugely important point. There's so many factors that go into it. So whether it's King, Dan, or whether it's another striker, if we do manage to sign somebody else, where does that leave our current three of Wesley, Samatta and Davis, do you think?
There's talk of Davis going on loan, but to be honest, he's one that I'd keep around. It sounds like Samatta could be in trouble, to be honest. I think we'd probably not make too much of a loss on him, and I think we paid about 8 million for him, didn't we? We might get that back if he was to go somewhere in Turkey or somewhere like that. So if I was him, I'd be quite worried, because he never really got going, did he? Yes, he scored in the cup final, but after lockdown, he weren't very good at all. Let's be honest, he just looked a little bit lost. So if I was him, I'd be worried, because they're not going to cut their losses on Wesley, because one, because he's obviously injured at the moment. Two, because they wouldn't get anywhere near the money back that they paid for him, and they'll believe that there's something there to work with. So they've got Watkins now. If they get King or someone else, I think Wesley will be sticking around. That's your three forwards, isn't it, really? Or three people that can play up front. Potentially, you'd want to keep Davis around the place as well. You've got a couple of youngsters coming through, might be okay as a fourth striker as well. If I was Samatta, I think I'd be concerned now.
To me, I'd rather see Davis go out on loan and see what he can do, and just get him a run in a first team. Obviously, it's not going to be our first team, particularly if we sign another striker as well. He's just going to be that impact sub. He's going to kind of be somewhere between the 23s and the first team again. Doesn't for me? I just feel like he is the one player I think in our team right now that could really develop from taking a loan move somewhere where he can get a run of games, get some confidence, and see what he's all about. Is there any chance that's the move that we see? I haven't had any interest from him.
Yeah, there's obviously there's a chance. I've seen a couple of links with Preston. I don't know myself how true that is. I get what you're saying, but in a way, it's like 2 years too late, 3 years too late, that loan. He's 21, 22 now, Keenan Davis. The loan should be coming way before then, and it comes down to, again, we've spoke about it many times, and it's not the current regime's fault at all. Villa's handling of young players over the years, it's not been brilliant, and that's why people that were hot prospects and people that we had high hopes for have just ended up just contracts running out and leaving the club and never really going on to do anything, because their development's been stunted, because they've not had those loan moves, they've not been afforded the chance. The other thing you got to bear in mind is that Davis is probably happy to be in and around the 18, being on the bench one week, maybe not being on the bench the next week, starting in cup games. I don't think Samatta's going to be happy with that. He's a more established player, isn't he? So they'll make money on Samatta as well. It helps balance the books a little bit as well. He's probably on higher wages. So to me, it just makes more sense that Samatta would be the one to go. And to be honest, I think that's what will end up happening if we get another one through the door.
I get that. I certainly get that from a financial standpoint and trying to keep people happy. But the argument I would say for letting Davis go out on loan is a long-term investment in him and his career. And, I think he signed a 1 year or a 2 year extension at the end of last season. So, we do have that opportunity to send him out on loan, see what he's made of, and then bring him back. And if he is a prospect, I know there's a few comments, and I think ever since we've been doing this podcast, there's been people on either side of the fence of Davis. We've always been quite fiercely defensive of him.
I like him.
I believe that there is a good quality player there. He lacks that goal scoring instinct, but the only way we're going to see that is if he has a run of games. And that has to be away from Villa Park. It'd be very interesting to see what happens with Keenan Davis in the next couple of weeks. But hopefully he stays around the club, maybe goes away for a little period, and then we get him back and see the best of him. The other side. Do you not think
that we know what Davis is? Do you not think? I think he's got a couple of levels to go in terms of overall game, but I don't think he's ever going to be that prolific marksman. I think we know what Keenan Davis is now, if that makes sense. So what is alone going to make that much difference?
I think it is. Yeah, I think he's still got a fair way to go in terms of his overall development, and a big part of that is playing every week, and we see how he handles being a number 9 at a club. And I think you kind of talked two sides of that there, where you said he's got a couple of levels to go, but he's never going to be a prolific marksman. For me, if he is going to be a Premier League or even a Championship centre forward, he's going to have to add goals to his game. I think there is a element of confidence in there that he hasn't had because he hasn't scored at Villa. And I think the exciting and frustrating thing for me about Davis is that he gets into the positions, and he's been so close to being on the end of a couple of things, and whether it's concentration or it's just fluffing his lines, it just hasn't gone right for him. I feel like maybe a different club or it takes a step down to go back up, he might be able to add that to his game with a full season of regularly playing, not just kind of bit part playing. Then maybe he can add that to his game. I'm not saying that he's going to be a Premier League centre forward, because I don't know that, but I do think a loan would be beneficial, and we may see the development of a player because of that.
I just think his all-round game is actually very good. he does a lot of things very, very well that you want a centre forward to do. He plays on his own up front. It's just that killer instinct and that final thing, which is obviously a big thing, of putting the ball in the back of the net. But I kind of just feel there's more benefit in keeping him around because he's something different. He's a good player to bring on when you're protecting a lead. He's a good player perhaps to bring on if you're chasing a game as well because he brings other people into play. And he'll be something different to any other forward that we have at the club. And I think Smith rates him very highly as well. I just think he will probably end up staying, and it'll be Samatta that gets sold, and he's the one we lose. Because if you're asking me at the moment who I'd rather bring off the bench, I'd say Davis over Samatta for me.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. But then I think if we bring in another striker as well, we're going to have a couple of different options ahead of even Samatta or Davis. So depending on where Watkins plays or how it all lines up, it's going to be interesting. I think there's pros and cons, and I'm really kind of basing that on a hope that Davis does have that extra gear, and all he needs is a little bit of time to find that. But we shall see. I think I've got
a final thought. I mean, this is definitely turning into the Keenan Davis show here.
It's a bit.
I think what I can probably envisage happening when I think about it, which I haven't done until we've obviously ended up talking to him here, is Wesley isn't going to be back for a month or two, is he? No. So Keenan going in this window would probably be a bit of a stupid move from the club, I would say. You'd then maybe look at it in January if Wesley's fit again. That you've then got your three people that can play up front, and maybe then you loan Keenan in January. For me, that's what I'd do. That's just my opinion, though.
Let's see what Smith and the team say. We've still got a month-ish, just under now, until the window closes. So let's see what happens there. Let's get back to the actual transfers then. And the first one that came through the door at Bodymoor Heath was Matt Cash. We talked quite a lot about him last week, Dan, hoping that it would happen. It did. Nottingham Forest fans full of praise for Cash and everything he's done for the club. He seemed to leave on great terms. And excited to see him start. I don't think we need to get too much into the specifics of him again, but the kind of knock-on effects as well that it'll have. Now the reports going that Freddie Gilbert may be on his way out of the club. How do you see the whole defensive dynamic looking right now?
I was initially quite surprised by that when I saw it, and from the looks of it and what I hear, it does look as if Gilbert is being forced out. It's pretty obvious he doesn't want to go and that he wants to stay and fight for his place. But the simple facts are that you got three right backs. He's probably not going to get a game at any point. And they've got the young kid Kessler coming through as well, who Dean Smith rates highly. So it's going to be difficult for Gilbert to. He may well stay around if he chooses to. That's his prerogative. I mean, he's on a contract here, so if he chooses to do that, he doesn't have to accept anything, does he? But he strikes me as the type that will want to play football. But I think he just wanted to clarify his position on social media by the looks of things, that he wasn't looking to leave. It was more that Villa wanted him to leave. So I feel a bit sorry for him because we often slam players for loyalty and things like that as football fans, but there's a player there that wants to be at the club, says he loves the club, and it's a two-way street, isn't it? And it looks like Villa are the ones that are instigating the move. So I do feel sorry for him. He seems to have a mixed opinion about him across the Villa fan base. I actually quite like him. I don't know whether it's just because I love people that like a slide tackle, because I like a slide tackle myself, and Gilbert's definitely someone that likes a tackle and loves to slide in. But he had bad games. He had some good games as well. The one thing about him was he had a little bit of pace, which was something that was, as I said earlier, was severely lacking across the side. They obviously think Cash is a massive upgrade. Otherwise, they wouldn't have gone out and paid. Good sign when players leave and the fans of the club that he's leaving are waxing lyrical about him. I mean, I think we saw that with McGinn when we signed McGinn. I remember us seeing it with Connor as well, with the Barnsley fans. So I think you're onto something good when they kind of get the best wishes from the club that they're leaving, because that is quite rare. It would make more sense, wouldn't it, from an age perspective, that Elmo be the one that's moved on, but Elmo's got a heavy influence in the dressing room. He's very well thought of in the dressing room, and he's got that experience as well, which is something that the squad doesn't really have on the whole. So he'll be kept around for another year. He's got a year on his contract. Maybe they're looking at it as if to say Kessler's ceiling underneath is higher than Gilbert's. So they let Kessler stay as the third choice right back for a year, learn off the two right backs that are there. And in a year's time, when Elmo's contract runs out, Kessler's ready to compete with Cash for the right back place. So I guess that's the way the club are looking at it. But I don't know, because I don't work at the club.
We certainly do not. No, the Hobotron basically asked that exact question. Why would you keep Elmo over Gilbert? And I think that's obvious. And the resale value, that's something we were talking about before with Samata. You're going to get a lot more money potentially for Gilbert than you would for El Mohammadi. Gilbert came out on Instagram yesterday or the day before, Dan. I don't know if you saw it, saying that he was happy at the club, that he was happy in Birmingham. Hashtag not homesick. And he obviously wants to stay, fight for his place. But I think you're right. When you've got 2, 3, 4 right backs and not enough centre forwards, then that's going to be a problem. Gareth Southgate doesn't seem to think so.
No.
But it will be an issue, and Gilbert's not going to be happy being second choice. If they brought in Matty Cash, he's not an old player. He's been brought in to play for the next few years. So it's getting crowded in that position. Something's got to give. Gilbert a right midfield role. Do you see it, or do you just think it's easier to kind of get rid and start again?
He's not going to play right midfield. He hasn't got enough going forward to play as a midfielder. I would say in terms of passing ability and creativity, I don't think I see him as a right midfielder at all. He might back himself, Gilbert, that he can change a manager's mind. I mean, look at talking of right backs that trying to be forced out. Alan Hutton we're pretty much trying to get rid of him for 5-6 years, weren't we? We just couldn't do it, and he forced his way back in. Maybe Gilbert sees himself as an Alan Hutton type and backs himself to get himself back in the fold and get himself back in the team. You never know. I mean, got this thing with right backs, haven't we? Steve Bruce loved the right back as well. We have like 1 left back and 4 right backs and 2 centre backs at one point. Like, we said to always have this thing with right backs at Villa.
I prefer not to think about it, to be honest. I'm not sure Gilbert wants to think about himself as the new Alan Hutton too much either. I think if that's the career path he's going on, I think he should aim his heights slightly higher. Legend Alan Hutton, but did have to work for it with the Villa fans, like you say.
I think Alan Hutton's probably pretty happy with how his career turned out, I would say.
Can he trap a ball like Tom Julian? That's the real question.
Who can? Not even Ronaldo can, according to your social media. That's
the real quiz. All right, so who's next through the door? In the comments, we've seen Ratsicha, we've seen Buendia.
I'm sick of that guy.
He keeps popping up, and apparently there's still a 25 million bid in the offing. Is it him? Is it Buendia who's still at Norwich currently? Are we looking at goalkeepers? Where's the next position coming from? What do you think?
I would say goalkeeper. I think Cantwell's probably more likely than Buendia. I would say that's what I think. I would say Cantwell, and I don't think he's particularly likely at the moment, but I would say he would be more likely than Buendia. Again, it comes down to the fact he can play centrally and wide. I think Buendia pretty much is right midfield, and that's your lot with him. Goalkeeper will be the next one through the door. I think we're making progress with Martinez. I think we're getting closer to Arsenal's valuation, but I think Arsenal are quite willing to sell him, to be honest. I think they rate him very highly and they don't want him to go, but I think out of respect to him and out of respect to the fact that he's been there so long, never managed to establish himself, he's done well for them when he came in as a backup last season. I think out of respect to him, if we pay the fee, they'll let him go. I understand he wants to come because he wants to be a number one in his own right. It's something that he's never been able to do. At Arsenal, he's got ambitions to play for his country. So at 27, he's probably got to start making moves now. But the big thing will be for them, they're not going to let him go unless they've got a replacement, because it would be absolutely naive to do that. I mean, we've seen Villa do that a few times over the years, like when we let Tommy Elphick go the season before last without lining up, thinking we were getting a replacement in, and then the replacement pulled out. We'd already let Elphick go and we left with no centre-back. So Arsenal won't do anything until they're certain they've got a replacement goalkeeper, and I think that's pretty sensible from their point of view. He's a goalkeeper that I really like. It would be interesting to see what happened when Heaton comes back, but Heaton's had a lot of injuries over the last few years. I think we probably knew that he was fairly injury prone when we signed him, but the fact that he's a very good goalkeeper probably overrid the feelings of fear over his injuries. But another bad injury to add to it, it's a lot, isn't it? And he's going to need time to get back up to speed as well. The backup to him has got a pretty bad history with injuries as well in Jed Steer. I think Neeland will be moved on God knows if we'll manage to shift Kalinic on the wages that he's on, but I'm sure we'll absolutely try to do that. So it makes sense, and it would be a big statement, I think, to get someone of Martinez in from a big club like Arsenal, a club that's always in the top six. I think that would be a big statement from the club, and it's someone who's on the up as well. You're not signing someone from a big club that's on the way down. His stock's never been higher. He's just come off the back of a really good post lockdown run of form. He was very, very good for Arsenal. Every time I watched him, I thought, wow, this guy is good. His distribution's spot on as well. He's got a really unique kicking technique. He's big. He's got a massive presence.
Loves the distribution, this guy.
I always love the distribution. But this way, have you seen his kicking? This is proper unique. It's like the way Cudicini used to slice the ball out, but it's really low and driven. So it's quite unique, and I like that. He's someone I'm very keen that we get, and I think the club are very keen to get him in as well.
We shall see. Yeah, it's very, very important. I think you're right. Do we have an estimation for when Heaton should be available?
I think it's the first month or so of the season, so it's maybe 3 or 4 games. But it's a big ask to just chuck him straight back in the Premier League. I would say it's a reason to stay in the Carabao Cup, isn't it? You get to give players that perhaps need fitness and time to get going again. Even Wesley, when he comes back, it's a chance to blood them without it being in the Premier League and without it being the under-23. So I suggest we try and stay in the Carabao Cup as long as we can.
That's the dream. One player that we talked about earlier on in this little series, and seems to again be making waves again with a potential Villa sway is Benrahma, another Brentford boy, and now the first one's gone. Maybe the exodus is happening at Brentford. Do you see any likelihood of Benrahma making his way to B6?
I mean, there's definitely been interest over the last 12 to 18 months in Benrahma. There's no denying of that. The club have definitely held an interest in him, but I just can't see it now. I don't see us chucking another between 20 and 30 million at Brentford, if I'm being perfectly honest. And I think we need that player now that can play wide and up front, and he isn't that player. I probably think we'll get 3 more. And maybe I'm being a little bit conservative there. People I speak to within the club have said 5. I would say, so it'd probably be 4. Now that would make sense, wouldn't it? Somewhere in between. But I think goalkeeper, definitely. I think winger / forward, someone of King's ilk. And I think we'll go in for a central midfield player at a proper number 8 as well for relatively big money if we can. But I think we're struggling to find someone again due to wages at the moment. I think we're looking on the continent for that player at the moment.
Right.
I don't see Benrahma. I think it would have happened by now. I just can't see it. I think someone like West Ham will step in with a week to go or on the last day of the window or something, and they'll just pay the money and he'll go there. That's what I can say. Could
be. I think there's still a bunch of Premier League clubs that aren't doing a huge amount of business as yet. It's been a very timid window for obvious reasons, and there are still a lot of dominoes to fall yet. One domino that we hope isn't going to fall, and it's all gone pretty quiet on the Jack Grealish transfer wheel. Do you think the fact that he got on for England and now he's been involved in an England camp, do you think that starts up again, or does it affect? There's been a bit more Manchester United Jadon Sancho chat again in the last kind of couple of days. How do you see the Jack Grealish picture currently?
I just think with the Man U stuff, I think probably around. I'm not saying they were trying to sign him in January because they wouldn't have been, and obviously they got Fernandes in January. But I think between January, February, and March, I think Man U did hold an interest in him, and I think they would have thought we'll go and get him in the summer. Villa will probably go down. He's someone we can look at. I think a lot of people who would know, and a lot of people who work for reputable companies were saying it's going to be Sancho or Grealish. If they're going for Sancho, no one even considered Van der Beek going to Man U. So where does he fit? I just don't think there's a fit there for him at the moment. Man City don't seem to have an interest in him. Spurs won't ever pay the money. So where does he go? I just don't see that there's anywhere for him to go at the moment. He's obviously made the England breakthrough whilst at Villa, and like everyone else, I was absolutely buzzing last night. I felt so proud that Jack Grealish was playing for England. It felt like something that we'd all been waiting for such a long time. Went straight on the Nike website after the game and bought the shirt, even though I absolutely hate it.
Because, I was going to say that. I just quite a come down after last week.
I don't like it. I don't like the shirt, but I just wanted to commemorate the fact that he'd he'd done that, and everyone was all the Villa fans and his family and everyone are so proud of what he's achieved. I don't think I've ever been prouder watching a Villa player play for England. It was a really, really great thing to sit there and watch last night. Just a shame it was only 15 minutes. It's a shame it was probably one of the worst games of football I've ever watched. But I just think he's going to end up staying at Villa. But the England stuff just seems a bit weird because it just felt like Southgate just felt like he had to give him 15 minutes. And I like Gareth Southgate. I'm not one of those people that's going to go around on social media slagging Gareth Southgate off. But I've seen some clips today of interviews and stuff, and I thought, no, that must have been edited. That can't have been like that. But there weren't. There's something awry somewhere.
What on earth was that interview? If you haven't seen it, it's clipped quite quickly. But the question is, what did you make of Jack Grealish's performance? And he starts off talking about moving Mason Mount around and how important Mason Mount was for 30 seconds of whatever the rest of the question is. That's the lead off that Southgate's got, and I think there must be, with all of these things, it always snowballs, right? So it's the kind of rumours and the stories and everything that you hear. It's not usually as bad as you think it is, and yet the block between Southgate and Grealish just seems to be continuous, and every opportunity Southgate has to not praise or not play or not include Jack Grealish, he takes it, and it just seems madness to me. Not even as a Villa homer, it just seems a weird move.
I meant, in fairness to Southgate, I did see his interview on Sky straight after the game, and he did praise Jack. So I sat there and watched that. So that definitely happened. I don't know whether he's getting fed up of being asked about him at that point, because Jack is box office media outlets across the country want to know about him and want to ask about him because he's that good. Now, I like Mason Mount. Mason Mount is a very, very good player. But to me, I think there's levels. So I see Mount as being here. Ali and Maddison are probably in the rung above him, I would say. And I think Jack's at the top level of those players. I think he's better than all those players. I don't care what anyone says. That I can take my Villa hat off, and I know I genuinely believe that. I think he's an absolute class act. I think he's so unique. I think even in the 15 minutes he was on the pitch last night, he just offered something so different. He went on that run. It was the most exciting thing I'd seen in the whole game. He did more in that 15 minutes than a lot of players did across the 90. I just think even opposition fans are coming around to the fact this guy should be in the team, not just in the squad, not just coming on. This guy should be in the team, but Southgate kind of praised Foden for his versatility earlier on in the week, but then it seems to be something that then he's working against Jack. He's claiming that Jack's up against Sterling and he's up against Sancho, but they're different types of players. And in international football, England have been crying out for a player like Jack for absolute years, for probably decades. We haven't had that player who, when you're struggling to break a team down, can just come and do that little bit of magic, do something different, someone that can buy free kicks. And that's why I'm saying he's at a different level to Ali, Maddison, Mount, who are all players that I rate and all players that I like. Jack's better than them. Jack should be in the England team, and to me, that's fact.
Captain K says the best English number 10. Philly D says, never mind Jack. Why is Southgate picking Eric Dyer over Mings? Another fair question.
Yeah, that was that. If you're playing three at the back, Dyer played the game before as well. Like Mings is crying out to be on the outside left of that back three. I mean, I think it was Carragher who was really, really banging that drum last night, and Gary Neville was disagreeing with him for a bit, but I thought Carragher was spot on. And again, it's not because I got a Villa hat on. It's just simple. He's left-footed. Having someone who's left-footed on the left side of a back three just enables you to do a whole lot more with the football. When you're knocking the ball around, it enables you to open up gaps a bit more. It enables you to move quicker because he's already got the ball on the left foot. So that made no sense either, but not a lot about that game last night made sense, to be honest. It was a dull, bizarre evening of international football, I thought.
It certainly was, yeah. Very turgid and a weird formation start with squad. And I mean, he wanted to try something new, and hopefully he's worked out that Southgate he never wants to do that again. So that's the one lesson you can take from.
I like that system. It's a good system. Gary Neville was saying that it is a good system. But it just we didn't have the personnel to play it, and I was confused by the way he was like. I guess he's trying to motivate his players, but he was raving about people who I just thought. I like Conor Cody, but was he that good? Did he do anything that great?
I thought he he was one of the better players last
Yeah,
night.
no, I'm not saying he wasn't, but Southgate was talking about him like he came in and completely reinvented the wheel in the centre of that back three last night, and I didn't see that. And even Mount, I don't really think Mount did anything. I just think England started to play a little bit better when Mount was on the pitch, which might be a coincidence. It might be because Mount came on, but he was talking about him playing in that central position. He just benefited because he was a player that's better going forward. We had two essentially other centre backs sat in front of the back three, didn't we? So there was essentially five centre backs on the pitch at that time. So having someone who's a bit better with the ball at the feet in Mount was always going to help in that position. I thought Jad did more in the 15 minutes than anyone did.
Yeah, I agree. To put a bow on it, I remember, I think it must have been 2010, 2011 when Scotland lined up with no striker. I think they were playing Czech Republic or someone like that, and they went like 5-4 or 5-5 or something like that. It was absolutely shambolic, and I think they lost 2-0 in the end. So it didn't work, but it just felt like we were parking the bus essentially. But yeah.
I sensed your struggle there when you were saying that they played without a striker, and then you went 5.
Couldn't work out the numbers. Yeah.
I enjoy.
Yeah. There's no coming back from that, is there? Is there anyone else, Dan, before we go, that you want to mention quickly in a quick fire transfer round? Anyone that's exciting you? Anyone that's potentially we've got eyes on?
No, I think we've covered it really. I mean, I touched on the number 8 thing. There's definitely a need for a number 8 because if you look at our midfield 3 at the moment as it stands, if you look at our first 11 as it stands at the moment, our best 11, I would say I'm discounting people that are injured. So I would say at the moment it's Steering goal, Cash, Conser, Mings, Target, Louise, Connor, McGinn, Trezeguet, Watkins, Jack. So after that, there doesn't feel a lot on the bench, and especially in central midfield. You're then looking at Nakamba and Lansbury. We need another number 8. We need another option in there, and I think we are looking heavily for one, and that's a position they've identified that they want to spend big on. It's just finding that right player. And again, these things seem to be taking time. Perhaps ambitions are too high with the wage structure as well. But I think a proper number 8 is definitely lacking from the squad.
Well, let's see what next week brings, because next week does bring Premier League football. You know, the next time we're talking live, we'll be talking about Premier League football. And this season we are going to do something a little bit different. Before each Premier League week, we're going to do a Premier League predictions, Dan versus Tom. It's not going to be live. We're going to put it up on YouTube and a couple of other places, I guess, as well. And we're going to keep a running tally over the year. So make sure you join in with that as well. We'll have to review the scores each week as well, and we'll take into your predictions as well. We'll take those into account and see what we can do. You can also join our fantasy league. I think the information is on the bottom just there. Make sure if you're playing fantasy football, you're in the Villa View League. We're trying to get a few prizes and whatnot sorted for that as well. So should be good fun. I actually need to put the team together because I haven't even given it a second's thought as yet. That's how confident I am.
I did my first draft yesterday.
Your first draft?
Yeah. Just to get something down, just to get something. It's hard. It's really hard this year.
I'm not sure I'm gonna have much time for more than one draft. So let's see how that goes.
I'm definitely not going to be putting any money on you winning that league.
I wouldn't. And if I'm still playing by mid-November, then I'm doing pretty well in there. All right, let's call it a day. We'll be back next week with more content. As always, look out for the Premier League prediction show as well. That's going to come up, obviously, before the start of the season. Other than that, Dan, all we need to do is remain patient, wait for a couple more signings to come in, and then we get our season started next weekend.
Next weekend, not this weekend.
That's what I said.
Oh, you said is that? No, you said I cut out. I couldn't hear you properly.
We're going to finish this just as well as we started, I think.
Yeah.
So
I mean, did we start? We don't know.
Who knows? This could have all been for nothing. So let's wrap it up there. Thank you very much for watching, for getting involved. We massively appreciate it. Join us again next week.